There is one decision most gardeners make every spring that quietly determines whether their garden thrives or struggles by midsummer. It is not what you plant. It is not when you plant. It is how much space you leave between plants. And almost everyone gets it wrong in the same direction. Too close. It makes sense in the moment. Seeds are small, seedlings are small, the bed looks empty, and you think you are wasting space. So you squeeze everything a little tighter, a few more tomatoes, a few more peppers, lettuce in every gap. The bed looks full and productive in May. But by July, something shifts. Leaves begin to overlap, airflow drops, and moisture starts getting trapped inside the canopy. That is when problems begin. Not randomly, but predictably. Leaves develop spots. Powdery mildew appears on squash. Tomato plants start dropping yellowed leaves from the bottom up. And the gardener assumes it is a disease problem, or a pest problem, or a nutrient problem. But it is a spacing problem that created all three at once. I made this exact mistake in my first seasons. I packed my beds tight thinking I was maximizing production. What I actually did was create the perfect environment for disease and reduce my yield at the same time. The season I finally gave plants more room was the season my harvest nearly doubled from the same beds, because spacing is not about fitting plants into space. It is about controlling the environment those plants grow in. In this video, I am going to show you the exact spacing rule that prevents most disease before it starts, why it works biologically, and how it directly increases yield even though you are planting fewer plants. The reason spacing matters goes deeper than just giving plants room to grow. The real issue is airflow. When plants are packed tightly together, their leaves overlap and create a dense canopy that traps humid air near the base of the plants. That trapped humidity is exactly what fungal diseases need to establish and spread. Powdery mildew, downy mildew, early blight, botrytis, these are not random events. They are responses to stagnant air and prolonged leaf moisture. When leaves stay wet for extended periods after rain, watering, or morning dew, fungal spores germinate on the leaf surface and begin colonizing the tissue. In a well-spaced garden where air moves freely between plants, leaves dry within 1 to 2 hours. In a crowded garden, the leaves can stay damp for 6 to 8 hours. That difference is the entire margin between a healthy plant and a diseased one. This is not theoretical. Research from university extension programs has shown that increasing spacing alone can reduce fungal disease incidence by 30 to 50% without any sprays. The spacing itself is the intervention. I measured this in my own garden 2 seasons ago. I grew the same tomato variety in 2 adjacent beds, one at packet spacing, one with the 20% buffer. The tighter bed developed early blight in late June. The wider bed stayed clean until mid-August. Same variety, same soil, same watering schedule. The only difference was 6 inches of space between plants. But it does not stop there. Once a plant becomes stressed by disease, it begins emitting different chemical signals, stress volatiles, that attract opportunistic insect pests like aphids, whiteflies, and spider mites. So what started as a spacing problem in May becomes a fungal problem in June and an insect problem in July. The problems compound. By August, the gardener is dealing with multiple issues at once, spending hours trying to fix what was actually decided months earlier at planting time. Here is the rule I use for every crop. Take whatever spacing the seed packet recommends and add 20%. That is it. Tomatoes listed at 24 inches get planted at 30 inches. Peppers at 15 inches go to 18. Squash at 36 inches goes to 42 or more. Lettuce at 6 inches goes to 8. And bush beans are the one exception. They can stay tight at 6 inches because their growth habit is compact and upright with natural airflow. Everything else gets the buffer. This applies to raised beds even more than in-ground gardens. Raised beds feel small and the temptation to pack them tight is even stronger. But because raised beds hold heat and moisture differently than ground soil, the airflow between plants matters even more in a confined space. And this is where it feels wrong. The bed looks sparse. It feels like you are leaving production on the table. But the math works the opposite way. When I planted tomatoes at 24 inches, I could fit 6 plants in a row. They produced moderate yields, but by mid-season I was constantly managing disease and losing productivity. When I switched to 30-inch spacing, I fit 5 plants instead of 6. But each plant produced more fruit, stayed healthier longer, and required almost no intervention. 5 healthy plants outproduced 6 stressed plants. The same pattern repeated with peppers, cucumbers, squash. Every crop I gave more room produced more per plant and more per row. Because yield is not just about plant count. It is about how long a plant can stay healthy and productive. Spacing extends that window. And there is a second layer most people miss: row orientation. In most of the U.S., prevailing winds come from the west or southwest. If your rows run east to west, the wind hits a wall of foliage and airflow stops at plant level. If your rows run north to south, air moves between rows, drying leaves faster and reducing humidity buildup. This is a one-time decision that improves airflow for every season after. If your beds are already built and oriented east to west, you can still improve airflow by staking or caging plants so foliage grows upward instead of outward. Vertical growth opens space at the base where humidity collects. That small change will not match the benefit of north-south orientation, but it helps significantly in existing layouts. Combine that with pruning lower leaves on tomatoes, especially below the first fruit cluster, and you create a clean airflow channel at the base of the plant where moisture and disease usually start. And now here is the adjustment most gardeners resist, even though it has one of the highest impacts on yield: thinning. When you direct sow crops like carrots, beets, lettuce, or radishes, they often germinate far closer together than their final spacing requires. Most gardeners know they should thin them, but they hesitate. Pulling out healthy seedlings feels wasteful, so they leave everything and hope the plants will figure it out. They will not. Overcrowded roots compete immediately. Carrots that should be spaced 2 to 3 inches apart produce full, thick roots at that spacing, and thin, stunted roots when left crowded. Beets become misshapen. Lettuce bolts faster because stress triggers reproduction instead of leaf growth. Thinning feels like loss, but it is actually multiplication. Every plant you remove gives the remaining plants room to fully develop. The first time I properly thinned carrots down to 2 inches apart, the remaining carrots grew 3 times larger than any I had ever grown in the same space. That one moment completely changed how I approach spacing. The thinnings do not have to go to waste either. Baby beet greens and young lettuce thinnings are some of the best salad greens you will ever eat. Thin into a bowl instead of onto the ground, and you get a harvest from the very act of creating space. Because spacing is not about giving plants room to survive. It is about giving them room to produce. When you stop trying to fit more plants into the bed and instead build airflow, light, and root space into the system from the beginning, the garden stops fighting disease and starts producing food. Fewer plants, more yield, less maintenance. That is the spacing rule. And once you understand it, you start seeing spacing not as empty space, but as productive space that allows everything else to work. If you want to take this further, watch the pest-proof garden layout video next. Spacing is one of the 3 structural rules that makes that entire system work.